I was in Chicago for about 6 years, and that really was my very clearly feminist support network. So it wasn't a group of women who were psychologists, but they were just a really wonderful, powerful activist. You know, part of that whole movement around domestic violence and sort of and struggling. And part of my interest has always been around sort of how do feminist organizations evolve and develop, and I learned a lot there about the just being part of the struggle of going from a really ideologically based organization but trying to become sustainable and viable, and what are those forces, really being in the midst of those forces around moving from a real collaborative model to thinking about how do we raise money, you know, how do you sort of hold on to your feminist roots but still generate the kind of traditional resources that you need in order to really function and to be able to you know, have a house and buy toilet paper and you know, all the sort of basic things you need to do in a battered women's shelter, is sort of maintaining that. So that was a really, really valuable, and those are some friends that you know, we went through a lot of struggles together on that board.
I've interviewed a few people who've been involved in feminist therapy collectives that sort of had their origin in the mid-70s. And you know, they talk about similar things in terms of how we remain feminist and make this kind of a viable, economically sustainable place, and how that... So you saw it in the context of, or you worked on it in the context of a battered women's shelter. What were some of the struggles? How did people make those compromises? How did they navigate that, wanting to be feminist but also needing to do certain things?
Well, you know, some of it is the struggle was around just who was going to be on the board. That this organization, I think, like a lot of feminist organizations, really was a group of feminists who got together and said domestic violence is a problem. And this is one of the older shelters in the country. And so the roots were very much out of a feminist grassroots kind of effort to create a safe place, safe, confidential place for women who've been abused. And so the founding members were clearly feminist, I mean, very explicitly, and just to add, just the starting from creating an organizational structure that lets the staff kind of do the day-to-day work and separates out, builds a board of directors. That is one sort of juncture that's a little disconcerting. I came on board after they had at least created more of a governing board structure, but there's a temptation in a lot of, I think, these newly formed organizations have a lot of blurred lines between the board and the non-hierarchical and collaborative, and you know those meetings that go on till 2 a.m. so that you can come to consensus and that I think you can only do when you're young.